welcome to Horror Boys. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris.
And we are the Horror Boys. And this isn't just any old podcast on the internet. No, my friends. This is a horror movie review podcast where every week we review a horror movie.
Right.
That's what we do. Typically, franchise by franchise. And right now, we're talking about that Child's Play / Chucky franchise. Probably more Chucky, because his name is Chucky. Chucky's in all of them. And Child's Play is only the first 3 of the things that are involved, so...
Sure, yeah.
But for some reason, it does seem like it goes back and forth. I feel like it makes more sense for it just to be the Chucky franchise, but I've definitely heard a lot of people call it the Child's Play franchise. But hey, whatever. Today we're talking about our first non-Child's Play movie in the franchise, in Bride of Chucky.
Yeah.
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 Which is directed by a Horror Boy alum in Ronnie Yu, who was the director of Freddy vs. Jason.
Great.
One of Chris's favorite movies ever.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. Look back to that episode. It's one of my favorites from last season or year.
Yeah.
Not saying the movie was one of my favorite movies we covered, but that episode was a fun episode. If you want to see Chris real unhinged, tune into that episode.
God, yeah. I go full sicko mode on that one.
Yeah. Our writer is, once again, Don Mancini, because, of course it is. One of our producers, once again, I bring him up every time. He's also the creator of Chucky and maybe another doll we may be seeing in this. He might have also been the one to help, design that in some of his drawings. That's right, it's David Kirshner. Our composer is Horror Boy alum Grémy Revel, who did Freddy vs. Jason and Child's Play 2. He's returning to the Child's Play franchise as well as returning to, us talking about him on Horror Boys.
Yippee!
Yeah. Our director of photography is Peter Powell of Dracula 2000.
Everyone's waiting for Dracula movie.
Yeah. Totally.
Maybe.
Well,
Somebody.
maybe. Someone probably.
Yeah.
Our special makeup effects are done by Horror Boy alum Paul Jones of Wishmaster. He was one of the many people on who did special effects makeup in that movie. At that point, we would have not given him credit. We would probably just given, K&B Effects as a whole. But he was one of the people who was the technicians working with them at the time. Other horror works he has are Wrong Turn, Ginger Snaps, Mimic 3, Dracula 2000, and Hellraisers 2 and 3.
Huh.
Yeah. Our Chucky and Tiffany puppet effects designer and coordinator is Kevin Yeager, returning once again. It was questionable how much he was involved in the last movie, but he is heavily involved in this movie again. Our 2 returning puppeteers are the late N. Brock Winkless IV and the late Anton Ruprecht, who is returning from Child's Play 2. He did not puppeteer on Child's Play 3, though. Our 15 new puppeteers. Let's start talking about them. First, we have Garth Winkless, who also did work on Master of Disguise, Hollow Man, Santa Claus 2, Alien Resurrection, AVP, AVP 2, Tremors 3, The Thing, Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi one, Godzilla, the 2014 one, It, Prey, and Smile. The guy's still doing work to this day on 2 of the horror movies people liked from last year.
Not bad, guy. Not bad.
And he did Master of Disguise, which I think, make sure everyone remembers, the most important. He worked on Master of Disguise.
Yeah, I don't
Dana
know about that one.
Carvey's awesome movie.
That is one of the movies he's in.
That
Yeah.
is.
Absolutely.
We then have Mario Torres Jr. of Scooby-Doo 1 and 2, Men in Black 3, Hollow Man, Santa Claus 2, Son of the Mask, and
Favorite mask movie.
Hey, it stars a Horror Boy alum. I don't normally mention that for the Puppeteers, but that does star our boy Jamie Kennedy.
Jamie Kennedy, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Who I
As
really...
Jim Carrey.
Yeah. Well, no, he's...
No,
Jim
it's not.
Carrey, I think
It's-
even... Yeah, it's... I don't think it even... It shouldn't be
No,
called
it's
Son of the
not
Mask. But that's a whole different story. We're not actually talking about Son of the Mask. That's just one of the things that Puppeteer Mario Torres Jr. worked on. The last thing that he worked on that I wanted to mention was Hellraiser 2022, the most recent, the Hulu exclusive Hellraiser movie. I'm not done actually, sorry. Because he also worked on Infinity War, Endgame, and Fern Gully 2. Sorry, Avatar 2.
Avatar 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
They're
guy
the
is
same thing.
doing some big works in Hollywood still.
Yeah. Man's killing it with
Yeah.
a career like that, doing some gangbuster movies.
Next we have Fred Stinson of A Muppet Family Christmas, Big Comfy Couch, and The Thing. Also, I believe this is the second time I mentioned The Thing. Whenever I mention The Thing for this one, it is the remake, just due to like timeline of these people and when they're doing their work. It is all everyone who I've mentioned has worked on the prequel remake. The Thing is a weird franchise.
The reboot?
Yeah. It's technically a prequel, but also it's basically just the exact same story as a reboot. It's weird. Next we have Ron Stefaniak. That's how I guess I'll go with pronouncing his name.
Sure.
He did work on The Tuxedo, Doodle Bops, Goosebumps, and The Thing.
We love him some Doodle Bops.
Yeah. I really enjoyed The Tuxedo. It's a crappy movie, but it's fun. It's a Jackie Chan action comedy. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been a minute since I've even heard that movie mentioned.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. Our next puppeteer is Rob Stefanowick, who didn't do any other work in puppeteering. We have, and to be fair, I guess I will also mention that some of
cool for us.
any of the people I'm mentioning on the puppeteer stuff, some of them did more work as puppeteers, some of them did work in special effects, because a lot of crossover of puppeteers a lot of times are just people from special effects like houses that, yeah. But also some of them, work on just, the Muppets and stuff, so who knows. Next we have Johnny Spence of Santa Claus, Master of Disguise, Tremors 3, Willard, and AVP, Alien vs. Predator. John Pattinson of The Santa Claus, Blue's Clues, and Fraggle Rock.
Haha, Fraggle Rock,
Yeah.
let's go.
David Miner Jr., a technical Horror Boy alum for Puppet Masters 4 and 5, the only good ones. To be fair, of the ones we've seen, and we have not gotten past like 8 through 11, which are considered some of the worst. But officially, we haven't got there yet, so they could surprise us.
One day we'll get around to them.
Yeah, totally.
Don't worry, guys. If you're horrible commentaries fans.
It'll come back probably in February, maybe.
Maybe.
Next we have Frank Meshkalil-Leet. I'm sorry, Frank.
Sorry.
I can't read my own handwriting, and your name is a little hard for me to pronounce, even if I could. Who he did work on Santa Claus 2, AVP Requiem, or something. I don't remember. It wasn't Requiem. It was something with an R. It was AVPR. It's AVP 2. The Thing. Iris the Happy Professor, Naughty, and Fraggle Rock, the OG, and the Apple Plus remake that just, was a couple years ago. So, yeah.
Alright.
Yeah. We have Brendan McMurray of one episode of Goosebumps, and that is literally the only other thing he did besides this.
Fair.
We have Sam De La Torre, of Alien Resurrection, Leprechaun 3, and Blade 2. Excuse me. We have Pamela Svedakanen of Mimic, Sleepy Hollow, and Alien Resurrection. We have Stefan Brothwaite of... I can't tell what that says.
Of Stefan Brothwaite's works.
Groundling Marsh, maybe? I'm sorry, I don't know what that even was. But he also worked on Under the Umbrella Tree, which is a puppet show I've heard of. Evan... Man, I'm really having trouble reading my handwriting today. I think it's Evan Bernard of Jurassic Park, Critters 2, The Blob, Terminator 2, Mortal Kombat, and The Shaggy Dog, most importantly. Lastly, thankfully, not that I don't respect all these people who did this amazing work on this, but oh boy, is there just way too many new people who all have extensive careers. Lastly, we have Tony Acosta Jr. of Dawn of the Dead, the 2004 remake. And then once switching from like special effects and like puppet stuff, he switched to being a specialty costumer where he worked on movies such as Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Captain America Civil War, Suicide Squad, Black Panther, Ant-Man, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and The Mandalorian.
Wow.
Yeah. Guy switched over to specialty costuming and did like a lot of Marvel, some DC, and Star Wars work for Disney Plus. Like the man is cool. Good for him. I mean, that's that. Yeah, that's all. Those were some big name things. I was like, what? Okay, he's in all of these.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's it for the pre stuff, I guess. I will mention, just because I don't know where else I'll mention it, just because it's a fun fact-ish, I guess. One of the reasons there's so many puppeteers in this movie is because I believe it was Kevin Yeager was quoted talking about how that anytime you see any of the puppets that are in this, Chucky or Tiffany, there is at least 7 to 9 people who are needed to make them function. So, hence why you need 17 people to make this movie possible.
Yeah, that's a lot of people for one puppet.
Yeah, it was because there's 3 just to make the mouth move proper, or maybe it's 2 to make the mouth move properly, and then there's 3 per arm. It's an insane amount of stuff that's needed to make it work. It's why I'm happy that we bring up their names each time, because it is a very important part of the process of making the Child's Play / Chucky films.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's start our movie.
Let's do it.
We open the movie on a rainy night at an evidence depository. We see a hockey mask, a chainsaw, a knife glove, and then straight up just Michael Myers' mask. You could maybe say that the other ones aren't what, they obviously are. But the Michael Myers mask is just straight up Michael's mask.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like no one really uses a knife glove either.
That's fair, but officially it's not, as... Yeah. But I do find it weird. I'll just bring it up here just because I thought it was weird. It's just that we have, straight up Michael's mask, but it's a generic hockey mask that doesn't really look like Jason's. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
It doesn't matter, but because it's just a cool little meta thing to show that all these characters in this world too. Maybe. I will also mention here, fun fact, that this is one of those things we've talked about before, where this scene was actually supposed to be in Child's Play 2. It's the classic Don Mancini wrote something, wasn't able to get into a movie, so he held on to the idea to bring it back later.
Good old Don.
Yep. Officer Bailey retrieves a bag from an evidence locker. We don't know what's in it yet, but spoiler, it's Chucky. Bailey is played by Vince Carrazza of Urban Legend, Kingdom Hearts, and Sailor Moon. In Sailor Moon specifically, he's Tuxedo Mask, which I don't even watch Sailor Moon, but I know that name and know that that's a very important character to that world. So he voices
Sailor Moon's love interest.
Yeah, he voices Tuxedo Mask. So that's a pretty big deal.
That is pretty cool. At least me.
Yeah, I mean, there's maybe someday other anime fans that will find this.
Who does he voice in Kingdom Hearts?
I don't remember. He voices like two characters because Kingdom Hearts is weird and they like have their good sides and bad sides crap that I don't pretend that I understand. Nobodies. Yeah, he's like Iezio or something like that. Well, you look this up so you know. I'm going to move on because it's not important.
No, that's fair.
He takes the bag to meet with a woman in a warehouse. We hear her on the phone, but we don't know who she is yet. While waiting, he gets curious what's in the bag and looks inside. Before he really gets a chance to react, though, he gets his throat slit by Tiffany Valentine for this. Tiffany is played by Jennifer Tilly of Family Guy, Liar Liar, and Bound. I believe she was like nominated for an Oscar for her work on Bound. I could be wrong about which movie she got. She is an Oscar nominee. I just don't remember for what. And nice. I'll be honest. Spoiler for the franchise. I did bring up Liar Liar and Bound for specific reasons. They both might come back into play at some point in the Child's Play franchise. Tiffany steals his lighter and reveals that Chucky's mangled face. In this like beautiful shot, this is where I'll bring up the cinematography / possibly the direction as well to make it like there are so many shots in this movie that are just like art in a movie that really doesn't deserve to have artful shots. Like, I don't dislike this movie by any means, but there's definitely shots where like this is shot beautifully. Yeah, so see, after we see that beautiful shot, Rob Zombie's Living Dead Girl starts to play, and the credits play over shots of her walking away. Then we get our title card, which is cool looking. It's like got like Bride of is in this like pretty font, and then Chucky is in this like stitched up font. The credits continue after the title card as we head to Tiffany's trailer, where she has a lot of dolls and news clippings about Charles Lee Ray. Does she have a connection to Chucky? She does. Yeah. Spoiler, she does. She takes doll parts and Chucky's remains and sews them together into Chucky's, I'd say, like, iconic look, just due to, like, when this movie came out, it, like, became, like, the look that, for so long, this was what Chucky was. Like, you walk past a Hot Topic, there would be, this Chucky in the wall, in the, like, door and stuff, like, yeah. And Spencer's and stuff. Like, this is when I think of Chucky, I think of, like, this stitched up look. Even though he's honestly not stitched up for probably the majority of the franchise. But, yeah, I don't know, it's like that, such an iconic look for him.
Yeah, no, I'd say that's totally fair.
It's also, I think, part of it that is just because he has this look in this movie. He has this look also in Seed of Chucky, and that came out in 98 and then 2004, and then the next movie was 2014. So for 16 years, this was the only Chucky that existed in any capacity, because sure. Yeah. We head to a nice house where David is there to pick up Jade for a dance. David is played by Gordon Michael Wolvett of Andromeda. Jade is played by Katherine Heigl of Knocked Up and Valentine, alongside Horror Boy alum Marley Shelton of Screams 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Also, she's like one of the most hated actresses in Hollywood for some reason. I think she's like hard to deal with. But
interesting.
Yeah. I know specifically she like just a year after Knocked Up, which was a movie that like a lot of was kind of one of her breakout roles. She like lambasted it for being sexist, which it probably is. It's a 2000s comedy, but it was also the thing that got her fame. So maybe don't make so close to. Maybe years later you could say that, but right after that probably started. I don't know. People don't like her, it seems. She's also a Razzie Award winner for a different movie she was in. Apparently, don't cast her in a romantic comedy.
Fair,
but yeah,
if you win a Razzie, it's probably a pretty good sign that
you're
doing something wrong.
David is met at the door by Chief Warren Kincaid, who is played by the late John Ritter of Three's Company, the It miniseries, and most importantly, to me, he was also in Season 2, Episode 11, Ted of Buffy, where he played Ted. And I won't say anything more about that character in case I can ever actually get you to watch the show.
That sounds like he might be actually kind of cool character.
Yeah. Also, fun fact about John Ritter, his son, Jason Ritter, also worked with director Ronnie Yu in Freddy vs. Jason. Hey, he was one of the good parts of that movie. He was like the only actor who like wasn't terrible in that. Who wasn't Freddy or Jason. But yeah. David answers Warren's questions as he waits for Jade with some answers that raise suspicion from Warren. There's a lot of... How do I address this? It's, a lot of, like, answers that kind of point to him being gay. Maybe kind of being played for mild laughs, but still in a way that deserves a lot of respect for how just casually, like, spoiler, we do find out in a scene or two later that David is a gay character. And, they don't really make a big deal about it. Yeah, there's some, like, slight jokes here with, him and Warren, but, like, it's not, like, malicious, I feel like. Which is, I mean, makes sense because, Don Mancini is an openly gay man, so obviously he cares about, representation. But it's cool that Don Mancini was able to have just a character that just happens to be gay in a movie in 1998. That wasn't really a thing that was happening yet. So, credit to Don Mancini for making that happen. When him and Jade, or David that is, are about to leave, he knows a lot about flowers, which continues to add the, suspicion of, that's not something a straight man in the 90s typically knows a lot about. After they leave, Warren calls someone saying that Jade just left. Once they've driven away, Jade's actual straight date, Jesse, pops out of the back seat. Jesse is played by Nick Stabile of Sunset Beach. I have no idea what that is, but he was in like 80 episodes of it, so if you're a Sunset Beach fan, you probably recognize him. And if you're a Sunset Beach fan, leave a comment, because I have no idea what that is. Tell me what it's about. I know I can look it up on IMDb, but I don't care.
Yeah. I don't care enough to look it up, but...
But if you care enough to want to let me know, please let me know. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
They are pulled over by Officer Norton, who is played by Michael Lewis Johnson. We then head back to Tiffany's trailer, where she is prepping a voodoo ritual from Voodoo for Dummies.
Yeah.
She starts the incantation, and it's Ade Due Dumbala, but it doesn't seem to work. Then Tiffany's boyfriend, Damien, shows up at the door. Damien is played by the late Alexis Arquette, the daughter of Horror Boy alum, the late Louis Arquette of Scream 2, and sister of Horror Boy alums Patricia Arquette of Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and David Arquette of Scream 1 through 5.
Huh.
Also, just... So, obviously, in this was pre-transition for Alexis Arquette, so they are playing a male character throughout. Just for the sake of my notes, because I felt weird writing, like, male pronouns, because I knew I'm sticking with, they, them pronouns going forward. If you have a problem with that, I don't really care.
Whoops.
Yeah, but I mean, the character they are playing is a male because this is pre-transition for them. But I respect that Alexis was never a male. They just were stuck in that body for a period of their life. So yeah, moving on. Damien shows a picture to Tiffany of a guy they claim to have killed. Tiffany's impressed till they realize the body's nail polish matches Damien's. Uh-oh. Can you believe Damien's not willing to kill people? What a loser.
Yeah, what a poser.
Yeah. Then she thinks sorry, I jumped a line. There we go. Tiffany notices that Chucky has moved. She thinks he's under the couch and has Damien look under the couch, but he's not down there. Tiffany's pet tarantula, Charlotte, falls on Damien's face, I guess just so we could have a spider named Charlotte because of Charlotte's web, and that's really... This spider does not matter in the story at all, but it does fall on Damien's face, so yeah.
Yeah.
Then the power goes out. Yeah. Damien wants to play harmonica, but Tiffany doesn't seem interested. She gets scared by Chucky next to her. He's like, like the lights flicker or something, or she turns and notices he's there, which he wasn't. So she got scared. Yeah, it's so scary. She tells Damien it's the actual doll from the murders. Damien's not impressed. Tiffany asks Damien if they want to play. Tiffany then handcuffs and I guess I don't know if there's a term for leg restraints, but she also restrains.
Yeah, she cuffs his legs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like handcuffs. They're still like handcuffs. They handcuff. Yeah. So Tiffany handcuffs Damien's feet down as well. So they're all cuffed up to the bed. She then places Chucky on Damien's chest and tells them both to watch as she does a sexy dance in her lingerie.
Yeah.
Tiffany tells Damien her history with Chucky from before he was killed in the opening of the first movie. Talks about how, she used to be with him, and I think she might mention how she waited for him for, I don't remember, that might be in that scene later, but we find out that,
Talks about how, if anybody looked at her, Chucky would kill her.
Jealous. Chucky was very jealous. So then Chucky turns around and makes a penis-sized joke and rips out Damien's lip ring and suffocates them with a pillow. Also, by the way, Chucky is still played by Brad Dourif. And I'll bring it up here real quick just because I want to talk about it. It is kind of relevant. In the hype for this movie, Brad Dourif as Chucky appeared in multiple vignettes in WCW where he just antagonized the wrestler Rick Steiner for really no reason. Because there was no payoff. The big payoff was we didn't know who was antagonizing them, but it was revealed that it was Chucky. Chucky cut a promo on screen to them, and that was about it. But hey, it's a WCW moment, and Chucky was there, so I'll bring it up because it's wrestling, and I love wrestling.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wrestling fans, keep your heart out.
Chucky and Tiffany catch up, all while this is all happening while Chucky is still sitting on the pillow, suffocating Damien. They're struggling under him.
Yeah.
She tells him how she looked for him for 10 years, which does add to the slightly muddy timeline, but not really. This movie basically also takes place in 98, like the last one would have, a couple months later, I guess. Yeah. Because just timeline-wise, because that movie would have also took place in 98, because it was 10 years after the original, because it was 8 years after the second one. It's a whole complicated mess. But this does reset the timeline back to modern times, which is good. Because at this point on, I think they're all just set in the time they come out. And there's no reason why this movie can't be the same timeline as Child's Play 3. Same time frame, a little bit after. I mean, the only character that returns is Chucky, who, is a mangled doll. So, But it is the only thing that makes sense because Tiffany talks about how she's, been looking for him for 10 years, which could be interpreted as 10 years since Child's Play 3, but she does. But she does also mention like how when talking about like being with Damien that 10 years is a long time to wait, which implies that it's been 10 years since the last time she saw Charles Lee Ray, which would go back to setting it in 88 and putting this movie in 98. This is not that important, but I felt the need to over-explain it.
Here we are.
Yeah. But yeah, so they catch up. That's about it. They share a kiss. And we cut back to the teens, where Chief Warren drives up and makes Jade come home with him, to the protest of Jesse. There is a really funny line that I cannot at all really even explain, because it is literally all just cursing, but it is a really good play on words between Jesse and Warren that I'll just say there's a great joke. Can't really even explain it. It involves the F word, and it's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah. So, also Officer Warren, or Chief Warren, I guess, whatever, Warren, threatens also to, like, basically abuse his power to stop them from ever seeing each other again. Like, I will, lie about, your blood test if I did it today, like, and no one will ever believe you. So, like, he's basically saying, don't you ever come near her, or I will make sure you're in jail for the rest of your life. Once the cops and Jade leave, David tells Jesse he should run away with Jade. Back at the trailer, Tiffany is making Chucky's favorite food, Swedish meatballs.
Woo! Meatballs.
You a fan of Swedish meatballs, Chris?
I don't know. I've never had them.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, but you don't eat food at IKEA often?
No, I've never been to an IKEA.
I've been to an IKEA.
I think if I went to an IKEA, I would have Swedish meatballs. I would make a point of it.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't eat Swedish meatballs. I've been to IKEA, though. We have some shelves in our living room that are from IKEA.
Oh. IKEA shelves.
Yeah. Tiffany tells Chucky she kept the ring all these years. He's confused, but realizes that it was an expensive ring he stole from a victim. Tiffany asks if he was going to marry her. Chucky calls her crazy and just starts
laughing.
Yeah, starts maniacally laughing at the idea of marrying her.
Yeah.
Chucky says they need to get him out of the doll body, and she says no. She likes him because he's like a little baby now, and she tickles him before trapping him in a playpen she has, because she's been waiting to get married and have kids someday with Chucky. Chucky, now the classic Chucky move of now that he knows he doesn't have the upper hand, he now offers to marry her. It's the classic, like, Chucky talking to Andy, like, oh, I'm your best friend, after he just threatened to kill him 2 seconds before.
Good old Chucky.
She says, sorry, I'm not into short guys, and blows smoke in his face from her cigarette.
Ooh.
Tiffany then tells Chucky her mom's always said love will set you free, but she knows it's wrong because she's been a prisoner to her love for Chucky for a long time. And now it's payback time.
Yeah, she presumably committed those murders because of Chucky, not just because she's a crazy person.
I mean, she's also a crazy person, but she's like a weird, spoiler, she's also like a sympathetic crazy person,
Yeah.
They do I'll be honest, I think the movie does a really good job of, like, making you feel sorry for someone who you really shouldn't for on paper. This is someone who gets very excited about the thought of killing someone, but you still then also go like, oh, but she's being mistreated. Which is a weird thing that this movie was able to make me at all feel like, oh, poor Tiffany.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. That's fair.
Okay. Tiffany cries in her bed next to the dead body of Damien in, like, a really kind of comedic scene.
Yeah.
She, like, tries to push him out of the way, but he can't really move because they're dead.
Yeah.
In the morning, Tiffany gets her neighbor, Jesse, we know him, to help put a trunk stuffed with Damien in her car's trunk. Also, I will bring it up here. Not that it's that relevant in this movie, but spoiler, it might be relevant later. She does repeatedly call him Sweet Face. And I just say, hey, maybe remember that. Maybe that could be an important thing to remember that she does. He hears Chucky yelling inside the trailer, but Tiffany says she's just babysitting a foul-mouthed child. Which, you know, it's not wrong, yeah. She then asks Jesse out for a drink. He is 17, by the way, so I don't know where they're going to be going to get a drink. Forget the fact that it's creepy, but just, I don't even know where she thinks she's going to take him. He's 17. Depending on the state, technically that could be not illegal, but you're not going to be able to get alcohol together somewhere.
No.
But yeah, but he says no because of Jade. Tiffany responds that all the good guys are taken, which is, you know, funny because Chucky's a good guy doll. Get it, guys? I mean, it is clever. I'm being mean to it as a joke because I'm a sarcastic jerk, but it's actually a funny line. She then tells him to treat Jade right and tells him a quote from her mother. A woman spends all day slaving over a hot stove for a man. The least he could do is the dishes.
It's the dishes. Yeah. Well, there's an expletive in there, but you know.
Yeah,
It's the dishes.
Yeah. Inside, Chucky has his blocks say "Kill Tiffany" slow, and is typing an obscenity when the speak and spell tells him to spell woman. For some reason, he can't spell it right. Apparently, him and Leatherface are friends because they both don't know how to spell the right thing on a speak and spell.
It's true.
That's a reference to Leatherface, A Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. If you haven't seen that movie, and you're probably not missing that much.
No, you're truly not.
I liked it, but it wasn't great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tiffany comes back home now because she was taking the body to Goodwill, is what she said, but assumedly she was dumping it in the river, actually. But, yeah, she comes home and gives Chucky a wedding bell doll with the ring on a necklace, and she's making fun of him during it. Yeah. Later in the night, Tiffany is watching the news in the tub about the 2 bodies found from her killings before switching to Murder, She Wrote. The news reporter was played by Sandy Strawbrand, and the cop being interviewed is Lieutenant Preston, played by the late Lawrence Dane of Happy Birthday to Me and Scanners. While Tiffany takes her bath, Chucky is using the ring to escape the playpen. Tiffany changes the channel again to Bride of Frankenstein, which is, you know, somewhat the inspiration for this movie. Specifically, David Kirshner actually saw a VHS of Bride of Frankenstein. Was like, oh, we should make a Bride for Chucky, and then went to Don Mancini and he wrote this movie. Yeah. Chucky grabs a kitchen knife and drags the wedding bell doll into the bathroom, and he runs at Tiffany, who kicks him, making him drop the knife. So he pivots to a different way of killing her by pushing the TV into the tub, electrocuting her to death. Also very, very much an homage to, Frankenstein, death/life by electricity, and there's shots of her face screaming as the Bride of Frankenstein is screaming as the TV sinks into the tub. Chucky does an Ade Due Dumbala incantation to transfer Tiffany into the doll. Chucky tells her, "You got your wish, you're mine now, doll." Chucky then she gets mad for a little bit, I'm skipping it over. There's nothing really. There are some funny jokes, but it's, once again, I can't write. There's certain jokes where it's like, ooh, I need to bring this up because it's like either relevant to the plot in a way or it's, so funny. But there is just some funny banter between them. And a little bit later, though, after they have their little argument, Chucky / Voodoo for Dummies. Lost my place. Seriously. There we are. Explain how they need the heart of Damballa amulet to transfer into human bodies. The heart was buried with Charles Lee Ray's body because he was wearing it the night he died. He was there the whole time. Don't go back to rewatch that first movie to see if it's there. It's there. It's totally there. To be fair, you can still argue not fair, but it was actually initially in the original script for Child's Play 1, but like the scenes that included it got cut. So
interesting.
But yeah, so. But, and some people, I could understand why. They could explain, like, oh, see, this undoes the mythology. But I would argue, technically, they were both done in slightly different ways, where now their bodies are dead. I don't know. You could maybe explain. I don't care. Maybe maybe they used a slightly different incantation. Because specifically with Chucky, he was, like, brought back into the body. It's not the same, so I don't know. But who cares? It doesn't matter. Those are kind of things where you could choose to get hung up on the fact that, oh, this is technically retconning things, but who cares? You got to have a reason for the movie to exist. You have to have a MacGuffin for this road trip movie to exist. They have to go.
That is truly what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
No, Chucky road trip.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so it is. They need a way to get to Hackensack, New Jersey, because that's where Charles Lee Ray was buried. Tiffany
Dolls can't drive.
Yeah, no. So Tiffany calls Jesse and hires Jesse for $1,000, $500 now and $500 later, to drive the dolls to New Jersey. I mean, that's the scene. It goes on for longer than that, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah. That's it.
Call Me by Blondie plays over a montage of Tiffany transforming the doll into looking more like she did before she was put in the doll. Ending the montage saying, "Barbie, eat your heart out."
Yeah.
Because she's the new hot blonde doll in town. Yeah.
It is kind of crazy how she makes her hair longer. But
maybe she's wearing a wig. Maybe she chose a different doll's hair and put it on her head like a wig.
I guess she does have a lot.
Yeah, she has a lot of dolls.
Never mind. Perfectly explainable.
Yeah, it is. How dare you? How dare you question Don Mancini's writing? He never makes mistakes except for when he does.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
But this might not be one of them.
Yeah, probably isn't one of them.
Jesse picks up the dolls, and a note. He finds out that he's delivering them to a cemetery, and he's a little confused by it, but not enough to not, still completely move forward with his plan.
Yeah, he needs that $1,000.
Yeah, because that $1,000 is going to change his life entirely and help him, like, put out a down payment on an apartment. Apparently, money's really changed since '98, or
2000,
or Jesse's an idiot. Could be that.
Probably the latter.
Yeah. We head to Jade and David, who are talking about love, when Jesse drives up and tells Jade he would never take her for granted and would do the dishes for her when she cooks.
Jade's very confused.
Yes. He asks her to marry him and run away with him with the money they make delivering the dolls. She kisses him and says, "I do." And they head off to pack their things. That scene goes on longer and isn't fun. I would say that's the one complaint I'll bring up immediately, and I'll reiterate it when it comes to final thoughts. The part of the movie that doesn't hold up great is the Jesse and Jade subplot. It's just, who cares? They are so one-note, boring characters. But hey, we gotta deal with them.
They certainly do.
Yep. Tiffany thinks it's romantic while Chucky is unimpressed. Warren shows up to the van, but leaves to get a pry bar to open the back door. Chucky wants to kill him with a knife, but Tiffany tells Chucky he needs to enter the 90s and move on from stabbings. Those went out with, Dahmer and Gacy? No, who was it? It was Dahmer and someone.
Bundy?
Bundy, yes. And, what? Yeah, he needs to, take a note from her idol, Martha Stewart. Oh, sorry, no, he looks like Martha Stewart with a knife. That's what okay, yeah. And he doesn't know who that is, so she tells him to take advice from Martha and to improvise. This is a fun little scene. I once again, whenever they're on screen together, it's normally pretty fun. There's not really a lot of their stuff that doesn't hit. That is the one, plus of the movie for sure is them. They have good chemistry between each other, Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly. So, I also want to point out something I just think is really weird. Is they bring up the 90s a lot, like not a lot, but twice, about how he needs to come into the 90s and how it's the 90s now and stuff like that. 2 out of the 3 movies he was in were in the 90s.
In the 90s? Yeah.
I mean, I get what they're saying is hey, it's the late 90s now, and this is post-Scream, and we've talked about the importance of post-Scream. You have to be somewhat witty or meta now to be able to make a movie. So, and this is very much a post-Scream movie, not quite the teen horror that most things were post-Scream, but definitely it's a post-Scream movie, you can tell. But yeah. So I get what they're saying, but also, only one of his movies was in the 80s.
Yeah. Shouldn't have that hard of a time transition to the 90s.
Specifically Child's Play 3 talks about, how this is the good doll of the 90s.
Yeah.
So definitely the last movie took place also in 98, so he should already be in whatever. But I also brought up in that movie how that was silly because the second movie took place in the 90s too. But hey, who cares? We'll move on.
Yeah.
Because it's time to improvise. First Chucky wants to use First Chucky wants to use a hammer, but she says that's predictable. So she sees some nails and she gets an idea. We don't know what that idea quite is yet though. Warren comes back to plant some weed. And he follows Tiffany's voice to the front where they use the airbag to propel the nails into his face. And Chucky asks, why does this look so familiar? Get it? Because he looks like Pinhead.
Yeah. From Hellraiser.
Yeah. Chucky and Tiffany hide his body in the backseat storage compartment, I guess is what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it a storage compartment going forward, but it's like one of those things where how sometimes you have a bench where you can lift up the seat and there's a storage compartment in it. It's that, but it's the back seat of this van. I knew you knew what it was. You watched the movie, but I'm explaining it to someone who might have not watched it because there are people who might just listen to our podcast, I guess.
Sure.
I would say that's not
those futons that have the compartments.
Yeah.
It's not a futon.
Yeah.
Well, they might be, and they just put it in the back of the van.
Maybe. I don't know. The point is, they hide the body in there.
It's weird, and it exists, and that's where the body is.
I would say it's not that weird. It makes sense to me. It's just, I have to explain it in case it doesn't make sense to where else they hid the body if someone who may have not watched the movie. I feel like if you watch the movie, you go, oh, okay, there's a compartment in there. Yeah. And they get able to get him in there and clean up just in time as, Jesse and Jade get back to the van. The van heads out, and Chucky, he pockets the weed. Ooh. The van gets pulled over by Norton in front of One Stop. I don't know what One Stop exactly is supposed to be, but it looks like a cool hopping place. All the cool people are there, it seems.
It looks like a rock and roll club.
Yeah, but also maybe just a restaurant, maybe a convenience store, because she comes back out with bags later of food, so I don't know.
Yeah, but there's also a large crowd outside of it.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
It's cool. It is. It seems cool.
It's the One Stop, guys.
It is the One Stop. Jade asks Norton to give them a break, but Norton says no because the extra money from Warren is too good. So Jade calls him disgusting and tells him to shut up or I'll vaporize you. I think she also says expletive vaporize you, but you get the point. And then she also takes a swing at him too, you know, just assaulting an officer. Great start.
Casually.
Yeah. Jesse is able to calm her down. Sorry, I jumped over a quick cutaway. We cut to inside the van where Chucky and Tiffany are smoking a joint. Ooh.
Aha.
Yeah. Yeah. So now Jesse calms down Jade and sends her to grab some food. Which apparently she's allowed to walk away after assaulting a police officer. You know, here's the thing.
Cool.
You know, Norton's here to, you know, because he knows there's like planted evidence or whatnot. But, you know, she's legitimately just committed a crime now. Now you don't have to even work. You can just take her in.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, he sends her inside. Norton searches the van and is about to find Warren, but Chucky gets his attention by tossing the weed to the other side of the van. Norton brings it out, and Jesse angrily swats it down and gets shoved on the hood of the van, and Norton tells him not to move.
Poor Shane.
Then there's a really funny scene where Jesse says an angry expletive and then kicks out his headlight in anger and then says the same expletive again with a different like meaning and like cadence. We'll say he says crap. You know he doesn't say crap. But yeah, he's like crap and then like oh crap. Like it's such a quick like little like thing where like he's first it's like angry, I'm mad, and then it's oh man, I just broke my headlight.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I have to use part of that $1,000 to fix his headlights.
True. It's okay though, because it's $1,000. He has a lot, so.
Yeah, that's enough money to, you know, buy a house.
Yeah, and live off for like the next 10 years at least if you invest properly.
You could buy another trailer home somewhere else.
I mean, if you go to the right rural area, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's a really crappy like single wide.
Yeah.
But
rest it out.
yeah. Chucky takes Tiffany's lighter and I feel like I'm skipping over. Did I skip over a page? No, I guess I didn't. Alright. So yeah, Chucky, he takes Tiffany's lighter and he crawls over to the Norton's police car and he shoves part of a shirt in Norton's gas tank and lights the other end. Chucky crawls back to the van. The lighter falls out of his pocket on the way back. He then flips off a stoner who responds with "rude effing doll" in like this really stupid but really funny delivery.
Yeah, very corny.
Yeah. The stoner is played by, and this is what he's credited as and has done other work, Park Bench. Who's also been in American Psycho. But his name is Park Bench.
Park Bench.
I mean, I assume it's probably not his given name, but it still feels weird that that's even his, stage name.
Yeah, it's a very interesting stage name to decide on.
Yeah. Chucky and Tiffany wave at Norton right before the cop car explodes in this really cool exploding car fire stunt thing.
Yeah.
Jade and Jesse leave as bystanders accuse them because, she did, threaten to vaporize him.
That is true, yeah. And then
and Jesse got angry.
Not really get vaporized, but he does go up in a ball of fire.
As they're driving away, they both accuse the other for the explosion. And get used to that, because that's going to be 90% of them in this movie is just yelling at each other.
Yeah. You're a murderer. No, you are.
No, I think you are. Okay, we get it. Okay. They get a call from David, who tells them that the cops think they're a Bonnie and Clyde-esque duo because of the lighter that links them to Officer Bailey's death. There is a funny joke here about where... which I did not write. I'll give you the setup and the punchline, even though they happen way farther in the movie, because I did not write them down when they happen, but I do think it's funny enough to bring up. David explains to them the difference between like a mass and multiple murder, how mass murders all happen at once, but multiple murders is like a serial killer. There is a point later where David corrects her for calling him a mass murderer and calls himself no, it's multiple murder, and she thinks that he's admitting to it. It's funny. It's one of the few like funny things those two characters do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll bring it up here because it starts here, and I did not write it down when it happens later. So, yeah. He also informs them that Warren is missing. They ask each other if either of them has seen Warren that night. As we pan over to some blood seeping out of the storage. We fade to reveal they're now going to Niagara Falls, which makes no sense at all. Because they probably I don't remember where exactly it is, but on Warren's arm there's some city name that's in New York, and to get to Hackensack, New Jersey, you go the opposite direction of going to Niagara Falls from where they are in New York.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But even if not, I just don't see anywhere where they could, unless they lived in Toronto. I don't know anywhere where Niagara Falls would be on their way to New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey is east shore.
Yeah, and
so is New York.
It's also slightly south of Niagara Falls is part of New York. They weren't probably on the New York side. It's it is possible that they were in, but it's it's also north of New Jersey. So let's say they were more west of it. Why did they go up to Niagara? It doesn't make any sense.
They would have to go opposite of the direction they should be going to get to New
Jersey. No matter
what,
there's no way they should have went to Niagara Falls, but they did.
Why, you ask?
Yeah, no idea. They just are now, though. And Jesse stops at a 24-hour marriage chapel, where we cut back and forth between their wedding and Chucky and Tiffany in the van. Nothing important happens at the wedding, so I will not mention it again, but just know that we are cutting back and forth as this next scene or so happen. Chucky starts rocking out to music because he doesn't like the modern music, so he listens to some old music. Yeah. Before Tiffany brings up the wedding she wanted, Chucky apologizes to her. The scene goes on for a little longer. It's relatively charming for the most part. Warren pops out of the storage, somehow still alive, so Chucky stabs him repeatedly, saying a true classic never goes out of style.
Can't go rock with a stabbing, am I right, Britons?
Yeah, that was a darker joke than I expected. I was gonna go hey, Scream only does stabbings joke, but
my fellow Brits.
Okay. We head moving right along. We head to the honeymoon suite where Jesse and Jade are watching the news, where Lieutenant Preston and Lieutenant Ellis are kind of giving conflicting accounts, where Lieutenant Preston doesn't want to give any information, but Lieutenant Ellis is basically saying they're definitely the people who killed kill people. Lieutenant Ellis is played by Ben Bass. Lieutenant Ellis says it's possible that one of them is a hostage or simply unaware of what the other is up to, which causes more suspicion of them looking back and forth at each other you am I being played here kind of thing, which am
I a hostage?
Which would be funny if it happened once, but considering that's their whole characters.
Yeah, truly. Right.
In barge Russ and Diane. Russ is played by James Gallanders, who was in Saw 2, kind of. I'm not trying to discredit the work he did, but he did additional voice work in Saw 2. So he is credited for being in Saw 2, but you're not going to find him in it because only his voice is in it, and it's not an animated movie, so I don't even know what additional voice work he would have done. But heck, yeah. I'm not trying to take away from he is technically in it. It's a horror movie, so I'll bring it up. Diane is played by Janet Kidder, the niece of Horror Boy alum Margot Kidder of Black Christmas.
Nice.
Yeah. Diane thinks Tiffany is really cute, but Chucky has a face only a mother could love. Chucky responds, "Hi, I'm Chucky, and I wouldn't talk if I were you," in a good guy doll voice. I don't know who voices the good guy doll voice. Eden Gross is not credited, and it doesn't quite sound exactly like him, so it could still be him, and maybe his voice has changed, or it's not him. Either way, I have no idea who does the good guy doll voice, and there's no credit at all for the good guy doll, so... Yeah. But this is I really like that scene where he, says a not, good guy doll line in a good guy doll voice, and it's fun. Yeah. Diane steals Jesse's wallet as Russ starts to proposition the 17-year-old couple into some four-way harmonica playing. Yeah. But Jesse and Jade reject them, kicking them out. They're 17.
Hey.
They establish that they're 17. Oh, sorry. They establish that she's 17. Actually, they only actually establish that she's not 18. It's implied that she's probably 17, but technically she could be 16 or younger. We don't know. But we do know from a line earlier that she is Warren's problem
not
until
18.
she's 18. So she is not 18. Jesse, I guess, could be an adult.
She's probably 17.
Probably 17, and maybe even Jesse's 18. Who knows? But it's creepy, and But thankfully, they reject them. And also, I don't think they really ever wanted to do anything. They really just were there to steal. But yeah. Tiffany sees this theft happening, so her and Chucky sneak into Russ and Diane's room as they're about to play some harmonica, just the two of them. Diane sees Tiffany in the ceiling mirror, and Tiffany throws a bottle of champagne at the mirror, shattering it, sending pieces down, causing a bloody, watery mess as the couple and their waterbed get destroyed or killed or whatever, however you want to word that. But yeah, it's a cool scene. I like all the blood and water, and the way the blood squirts out of the water. It looks cool. Once again, really pretty. There's a lot of really pretty moments in this movie. This is one of them. Chucky is impressed by Tiffany killing them and asks Tiffany to marry him with Diane's ring that he takes off her severed finger. And then the dolls they play harmonica.
Yep.
Not quite an American what's the stupid movie, maybe the South Park guys, World the puppet movie.
Yep.
Yeah. World Police, America Team, something like that. I'm sure I'm butchering it, but it's that. They go a lot graphic. This is as tasteful as you can be with a puppet harmonica scene.
Yeah, it's just a silhouette, thankfully.
Yeah. Oh, we do see some Tiffany butt crack. Ooh.
Oh.
I guess maybe for someone. There is a funny joke where she asks him if he has a rubber. And he says that he's made of rubber, which I thought it was funny. She then also said that actually you're made of plastic. But either way, it's stupid humor, but it was funny humor to me. I liked it. Back in the other room, Jesse leaves and Jade calls David to tell him about her suspicions of Jesse. David gets another call and it's Ghostface. No, wait, dang it. It's Jesse telling him that he's suspicious of Jade, because that's all this movie does. It's just, he's suspicious of her, and she's suspicious of him, and blah, it just keeps happening. And that's why, I'll be honest, I probably won't ever give you any real details that happen in most of those scenes, because I don't care. And there's not much to give you. There's nothing there. There's no substance in their part of the story.
Yeah. It's just the same thing over and over again, all the time.
In the morning, a maid finds Russ and Diane's bodies and screams, alerting Jesse and Jade to last night's killings. The maid is played by Kathy Najimy of Sister Act 1 and 2 and Hocus Pocus 1 and 2. She's one of the, 3 witches in Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
She's the least famous of the 3 witches in Hocus Pocus. It's a fact. I mean,
Yeah,
here's the thing. She's
no,
way
it's
more
true.
famous than I'll ever be. So, like, good for her. I don't think she should care that I called her the least famous, but she just simply is not as famous as Bette Midler and I forgot the other lady's name. Jennifer something? Is it Jennifer Love? No, not Jennifer Love. What is her name? Jessica something?
I don't know. I'm not
The
that
chick
much of a
from
book
Sex
fan.
and the City. Don't remember her name. But it doesn't matter because she's not in this movie.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
That's the one. As they're about to leave, they get joined by David, who, in the van, because I guess he decided to come with them. Don't know how he got to Niagara Falls and then chose to still come with them, but whatever, who cares? He explains that both of them blaming each other, that there are 3 options. 1, both of them are crazy. 2, one of them is lying. Or 3, neither of them are the killer. And with his knowledge of both of them, he thinks that neither are the killer. David smells something. I'm going to come back to that maybe in, like, literally later in the scene. And says that, he thinks Warren isn't dead and only missing, and he's actually the killer because, he's more likely to be psycho than them. David then, that smell, it's still there, so he goes to investigate the smell, and he sees the pool of blood, and he checks the storage and finds Warren's body and takes his gun, and he has them pull over at gunpoint. He reveals Warren's body to them, and what would you guess they do when he reveals that body to them? They start blaming each other. They literally, in the scene before this that I skipped over because I don't care about them at all, they were like talking about how much they love each other and how they're so sorry for ever thinking it could be them. He's so right that there's no way it could be them. But now immediately, the same scene, they're back to just... It's ugh.
A lot.
I hate it. I hate them. I hate Jesse and Jade.
Yeah.
They pull over. They're blaming each other. David gets out and calls for help. A cop starts driving towards them. Chucky and Tiffany pull out guns that somehow they had that we'd never seen them have before, but they have them now. And they tell them, nobody move. David does not listen, and he runs away right into an 18-wheeler that, kind of vaporizes him. If we're going to call someone being vaporized, that's him. They force Jesse to start back up the van, and Chucky shoots out the cop's tire that was following them. Chucky tells them his and Tiffany's name. Jesse asks how they ended up like this, and Chucky responds, it's a long story that if it was a movie, it would take 3 or 4 sequels to do it justice, which, hey, that's a funny meta line, because this is the 4th movie. I'm going to try to go back to... There are a lot of this movie that I like. I got to settle back down. This is not a Jesse and Jade only scene, so I don't have to hate this scene. Chucky's in it, so it's good.
It is better.
Yeah. Tiffany explains how they're going to use Jesse and Jade's body in the ritual. Talk about how they're, just renting the bodies they're in now, and they're looking to buy new ones, and it's all about location, and they're in the right place at the wrong time. Which I would argue is probably the other way around, or really in the wrong place at the wrong time, but whatever. Then the radio starts up. I guess the song gets interrupted by a news report, I guess. I don't feel like I even remember a song before it in the scene, but now the radio, we hear the news, but no one turns it on. And we find out that Charles Lee Ray's fingerprints were found at 2 of the crime scene, so his body is going to be exhumed. Chucky and Tiffany are kind of worried about this, Tiffany especially. And Chucky says that the first thing they're going to do is they're going to need some new wheels. So we cut to later, as they're entering Hackensack in an RV. Tiffany is giving Jade a makeover, so she looks more like, her. And the timer goes off. She goes to the pantry to grab an apron next to the RV's owner's corpses. Then Tiffany takes out some cookies and brings them to Chucky, who compliments the Swedish meatballs he's finishing up. Chucky tells Jesse if he knew marriage was going to be this good, he wouldn't have waited that long. Jesse sees the dirty dishes in the rearview mirror and says, "There's not much of a housekeeper, is she?" Because he's setting up a trap here for Chucky. So Chucky tells Tiffany to do the dishes. Jade catches on and tells Tiffany if she cooked, he should at least do the dishes.
True. That's a line from earlier.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I really actually like that, like, callback to earlier.
Yeah. This is the only thing that Jade and Guy add to the...
Yeah. Tiffany gets pissed and starts throwing plates at Chucky. He asks, what would Martha Stewart say? Tiffany retorts with an obscenity towards Martha. Tiffany rips into Chucky as a bad partner and his inadequacies in the bedroom, if you catch my drift.
Yeah. He's a small doll.
Yeah, he is a small doll, and, you know, joke about penis size again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, hey, it's a funny joke about. I'm not gonna actually pretend like I didn't think it's funny. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm above it. I enjoyed the joke. But yeah, so yeah, they yell back and forth for a little bit. Then Jesse kicks Tiffany into the oven, closing it, and Jesse punches Chucky out of the window. But Chucky shoots a couple times, which causes Jesse to swerve off the road, crashing the RV on the side of the road. Wires are sparking and the gas line is flooding the floor. That's not good. But Jesse's knocked out with Jade still tied up. We didn't mention that, but she's tied up. So she's tied up. Tiffany's still alive, but now she's all charred up in the oven, a la Chucky in Child's Play 1. Jesse comes to after Tiffany pops out and is attacking Jade. He throws Tiffany off of her and unties Jade just in time to get both of them out of the RV right as the RV lights the gas, exploding the RV. Oh, big explosion. Another cool explosion.
Michael Bay explosion.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm not going to ever knock a cool car explosion. Those are cool. Chucky takes Jade by gunpoint to the cemetery. Jesse falls behind, holding Tiffany by the hair. And I just really... It's like a small moment of, like... I don't know if it's even intentional comedy. But just as he's carrying her, the just way that Jennifer Tilly is going... it's just so, like, funny. Like, the efforts she's doing in this scene. Off screen, Chucky shoots the man digging up his grave and has Jade climb down. I mean, it's a weird thing, like, where, like, the shot happens off screen, but you do see the blood splatter and you see his dead body fall, but technically the gunshot happens off screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he forces Jade to go down there to get the heart of Damballa. And she goes down there, she ripping off his head, and he says, you broke my neck. Which was... that's funny. I like Chucky. Chucky's funny. Chucky's a great character. If only this movie had more of him and less of Jesse and Jade. Speaking of Jesse and Jade, Jesse shows up with a gun to Tiffany's head, which gets Chucky to kind of swap hostages. Tiffany is disappointed. She never gets on with a real good guy. Jesse and Jade embrace. And Tiffany falls, asking Chucky to catch her, and he doesn't care. Chucky throws a knife at Jesse and Jade, and Jesse turns so it hits him in the back and not Jade. Chucky ties both of them up and starts his Ade Due Dumbala incantation. Tiffany gets up and tells Chucky she loves him and says, "We belong together forever." And she asks for a kiss. He does, and she takes his knife, stabbing him in the back. Chucky asks why, and she responds, "Don't you see? We belong dead." which is a reference to Bride of Frankenstein. It's something that Frankenstein does. Jade frees herself from the ropes, but Chucky gets up and starts fighting Tiffany with a shovel, with some cool overhead shots that definitely utilized the doubles, the returning Ed Gale, and Tiffany's double, the late Debbie Lee Carrington of Men in Black, and She's All That, alongside Horror Boy alums Usher, Alexis Arquette, Clea Duvall, Anna Paquin, and the national treasure himself, Matthew Lillard. Jeez, that movie has, like, every other person in that movie is we've covered in a different movie.
Yeah.
Chucky wins the fight, stabbing his knife through Tiffany. Tiffany says, "My mother always told me love will set me free." Chucky pushes her off his knife and gets shoveled into his grave by Jesse. Jade is about to shoot him when Lieutenant Preston shows up and tells her to drop her gun. She does, and then almost immediately just takes his gun and aims it at Chucky, who says, "Go ahead and shoot. I'll be back. I always come back." Then she cocks the gun, and he says, "But dying is such a bad feeling. It doesn't feel good to die," is what he says exactly.
Yep. Word for word. Yep.
Jade shoots him repeatedly, killing him. Because apparently, well, it takes one kill this time. Normally it takes like 7. This time it's 1. Preston tells them that no one will believe them, but Jesse and Jade are free to go home. He finds Tiffany's body, who lets out a jump scare style scream as she starts going into labor, and gives birth to this baby doll monster that lunges at Preston's face.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the movie. Overall, it's not great. It's not bad either, though. It's fun. It's fun overall. Overall, I wouldn't even say it's not bad. I'll even say it's a good movie. I think it's a good movie. I think it definitely has some massive flaws. I also definitely think it's way overhyped by the fan base of the Child's Play franchise. This is considered a lot of people's favorite, and I think that's mostly just due to nostalgia of a lot of people who cover horror happen to, be around the age where this was probably the first Child's Play movie or Chucky movie they saw in theaters, because, most of them are probably in their early 30s. But, it's not my favorite. It's, spoiler, my least favorite, personally. Yeah, it is my personal least favorite. But, yeah, it is what it is. I still like it, though. I still think that this is the second best horror franchise ever, because I think if this is your worst movie, boy, yeah, it's no Scream 3, this is the worst movie, but it's still a really good movie. But it is wait, this is your worst? This is nowhere near, your Freddy's Dead, or your Jason Goes to Hell, or half of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. But yeah, I like it overall. Things I really like. I think it's shot beautifully. I don't know if that's, credit to the director Ronnie Yu's direction, or if it's the cinematographer, I'm blanking on his name, but want to give him credit. Cinematographer Peter Powell. I'm not sure who exactly deserves credit for some of the beautiful shots, but there are some beautiful shots. I think, for the most part, most of the humor for me lands, which, if you're doing a horror comedy, which is definitely what this is trying to be, that is very important, to have humor that lands. And I don't personally feel like there was many jokes that didn't land for me. The parts of this movie that didn't land for me were the human elements of the story. Jesse and Jade are really just terrible characters, and I don't personally think that sinks a movie, but it definitely hurts it from being as good as it could be if, the Chucky and Tiffany side of this story were with something better.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my thoughts.
This is also, at least so far, my least favorite Chucky movie. I don't even know if I would even go as far as to say it's a good one.
It's fair.
It's decent. It is decent, but I will say that the Jesse and Jade parts of the story were so like boring that every time they were on screen, I found it hard to like keep interest in the movie at all. I was just like, nah, I don't care about these guys. I just want to go back to Tiffany and Chucky. That being said, when it was Tiffany and Chucky, it was very entertaining. It was fun, and I was very eager to see, you know, the origin of the Bride of Chucky. And I thought that part of the story was fulfilling. And to a certain degree, I get that Jesse and Jade needed to be there to, you know, play on the heartstrings of Tiffany, but also, God, they sucked. I hated them so much. Yeah, very 2D, one note. Also very dumb characters, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just like take everything at face value and don't question anything at all, which is goofy to me. But it was entertaining where it needed to be, but it did suffer from the unfortunately necessary plot points.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing else to say about this movie. But next week, we're going to be covering the next movie in the franchise that overall is considered probably the worst movie in the franchise. I personally don't agree. I liked the movie. This is honestly the only movie that I even kind of disliked in the franchise. So I like it. Next week, we're talking about Seed of Chucky. Most people probably don't like. You probably won't like it, but hey, we'll see. I like it.
Who knows?
So we'll find out next week if Chris likes it. But yeah, then what else can I say? Hey, I know what to say. Hey, if you like this podcast, leave a 5-star review on all those podcast apps that you use.
You know the ones.
Yeah.
You're using it right now.
Totally. And if we're not on that one, how are you listening to this? Obviously, we're on your favorite podcast app.
Yeah, clearly.
And also, if you want ever wanted like a video version of this podcast, we give you that on youtube.com/@Horror Bois. We also sometimes make another show on that channel that, hey, maybe we'll come back more often this year. Maybe we'll see.
Get back into it, probably.
Maybe. But yeah, also if you want to support us directly and you want to make us make more content that we have to make because you're supporting us, head on over to patreon.com/horrorboys where you can, support us directly. And tons of different tiers with different rewards on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's it. I'm Austin, and I was joined by Chris, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.